and I started on our accidental journey, we never thought we'd be competing with President Donald Trump for attention. But judged by the turnout tonight, I think we've won. But maybe we should entitle our next book The Accidental President. Tonight's book launch is, as your invite said, the product of 72,000 words, 18 months, and one baby born halfway through. But this story really started just over 8 years ago in Daniel's bachelor pad, the scene of the first and only candlelit dinner he ever cooked for me before he proposed. His flat was so near Wimbledon's tennis courts that you could hear the crowds roar when Andy Murray hit an ace, and it turned out to be a winner for us too. By letting it out, we could travel the world, start a business, and buy our first family home, not far from here in Twickenham. But letting it out also made us accidental landlords, like about 500,000 other owners in Britain, who never intentionally invested in buy-to-let, but ended up letting out their property through circumstances. Some of them moved jobs, partners, or countries. Others inherited a home. There are more and more of us, as soaring house prices means that people hold on to their starter homes and rent it out after they've traded up. And together we make up about a quarter of Britain's landlords, yet we've discovered there's surprisingly little help for people like us.
That's why friends who moved abroad started asking me to help manage their rental properties. And so my business, Swift Property, was born about 6 years ago, and we are a letting specialist that now looks after the southwest London homes of landlords living in 13 countries across 5 continents. These clients were the source of most of the hair-raising stories you read in the book, and that includes the brothel, more about that later, and the year-long saga of heating an entire flat, well, eventually, at the end of it, heating an entire flat to 60 degrees, just so we could kill the bloodthirsty bedbugs crawling up from the story below. And then there's the python. Everyone wants to know about the python. It happened on the 23rd of December, so a frosty December morning. The owner of a block we manage called me desperately asking to help as water was coming down his walls and all his electricity had tripped. And he kept 2 pythons in the flat in designer cages that had to be heated to a certain temperature to keep them alive. So he was getting a bit panicky and he was heading off to the airport shortly, and he was worried the pythons were in for a chilly time. So 3 hours, 19 phone calls and 1 bashed down door later, we managed to find the leak 4 stories above, but the electricity was still shorted in the blocks, so he was on his way to the airport and he said, "Please won't you help me? Can you book a cab for my pythons? They need to go somewhere safe and dry so they can have a cozy Christmas."
So there are lots of pitfalls in lettings, as we found out when a pigeon once laid eggs in one of our tenants' beds. There are more than 140 laws on letting out your home. The rental market is now more expensive, more regulated, and more taxed than it's ever been before. And we think it will get even tougher as the government tries to deal with the housing crisis. That's a topic I've often written about for the Sunday Times, with help from quite a few of you in the room. For the past 30 years or so, Britain has been building too few homes, and we now have a shortage of about 2 million homes, which has caused private renting to double in the past decade. And that makes landlords a political target. New tax rules means that even experienced landlord, like Chris Cooper over here, who is having to sell or make big changes. Chris works as cabin crew, and he's bought 15 buy-to-let properties over the years as a retirement nest egg. But once the new rules kick in, he'll be making only £1,000 in profit a year. So that's why he started a campaign and sued the government with the help of Cherie Blair. So don't think you can just muddle along. At the height of the boom, landlords didn't even bother putting tenants in their properties because the prices were going up so fast. But those days are gone.
For accidental landlords, there's one more factor that makes letting even tougher, the emotional one. Many of us have lived in our rental property and we have an emotional connection to it. These are people like John and Lily, who let out their 4-bed terrace in Mortlake, and they were pretty nervous. They had a job transfer going to Switzerland. They didn't want just anyone to live there. For them, it's not just about 4 walls, it's the walls they've tried 15 different colour paint on to get the right one. It's not just a floor, it's the floor their son took his first steps on, and it's not just a roof, but it's the roof that they laughed, cried, fought under, and made up again under. So for them, it's all about peace of mind, and that's what we try to convey in the book, with lots of practical advice. Here's one tip for viewings. Even if you're quite sure that the tenants aren't there, still ring the doorbell and wait for a little while before you enter. About 20 years ago, Denise will remember, we went to rent a flat in Putney. It was a 2-level flat, and so we went in, the agent showed us around, we looked around, and after we got in, about 5 minutes later, the handyman came downstairs, and it was a bit strange. He never said hello when we came in. So we carried on doing the viewing, and I went upstairs, saw a nice room, and I thought that'll be my room, and opened the cupboard. I thought, what's the cupboard space like in this place? Opened the cupboard, and there, to my shock, was a fully clothed lady going like this. Needless to say, I was pretty shell-shocked. The last thing I expected to see, so I promptly just closed the cupboard doors and walked downstairs. So who knows what was going on there?
So, practical tips aside, our most important piece of advice is to be deliberate. Even if you started out accidentally, you won't succeed at letting if you carry on like that. That means setting deliberate property goals. Half of all landlords, not just the accidental ones, don't even have a business plan. By planning ahead, you can use your property as your first step to financial freedom, to pay those school fees, to retire in comfort, to one day live life in a hammock. After all, property has been the best investment of the past 20 years. But even more crucially, being deliberate means thinking about the impact that you can have on your tenants' lives. We give them shelter, which is a basic human need, and we do this in a market where many of them are priced out of owning their home. Raising the rent can mean that families have to uproot their children from school again and again. And this is something I've come to care about deeply through talking to people like Shelter in my work, and also Johnny Morris, the head of research at Countrywide, who's a brilliant researcher.
Yeah, so we do offer some serious advice in the book, not just stories, such as the importance of vetting your tenants properly. And here's why. In a respectable part of central London, a clean-cut young man came to rent a place. He passed all the reference checks, looked like a decent candidate, and he agreed to pay premium rent. The landlords were delighted, and he signed a 1-year contract. All went well for a month or two, but then the neighbours, who happened to be here tonight, I won't point them out, started to notice strange noises in the night, humps in the night. So they were starting to be woken up and noticed that strange men started ringing the buzzer at all hours of the night, wanting a massage. The upstairs flat had clearly been turned into a brothel. Legal threats, a police raid, nothing helped. 11 months later, the only way we could stop this was we managed the building overall, and we hired a security guard to vet personally each client who came along, and that scared them enough to stop. So we also tell you in the book how to deal with maintenance requests. Fixing the boiler is not optional, it's a legal obligation. So many landlords don't know this. Like the one who said, "Why do they need hot water? I take a cold shower." But some tenant requests, we've had many of those too, are slightly less vital, such as these extracted from real letters to Leicestershire Council. "I'm writing on behalf of my sink, which is coming away from the wall. I request permission to remove my drawers in the kitchen. Will you please send someone to mend the garden path? My wife tripped and fell on it yesterday, and now she is pregnant." On a more serious note, I'd like to thank the people, particularly tonight, who read the book, the initial draft, and gave us some great input. Susan, John, and Sandy, who are here tonight. Thank you for your valuable feedback.
And I would like to say a big thank you to Helen Davies, my editor at the Sunday Times, who has been very supportive and wrote a very nice foreword for us. And thank you to my colleagues who came out in force tonight. And we also owe a big thank you to those of you who have reviewed the book, including Johnny and Chris, who I've mentioned. But the biggest thank you is for the 2 people who couldn't make it tonight because they are sleeping, hopefully. And that is Cara and David, aged 3 and 1, our 2 Leaslets, who endured many hours of watching Mama and Papa type.
So we would like to just raise our glasses and a toast to everyone here who has been part of the accidental landlord journey. Thank you for your support.